polished marble of the penthouse floor was cold against her knees, but not as cold as the crushing secret that finally forced silent tears from Bella. She was the one soft thing in the dangerous world of Jun Seo, and he was about to discover her breaking point. Bella was a ghost in the vast, silent, and deadly estate, a black dress against the white marble. Every movement was practiced perfection, masking the raw terror of living inside a gilded cage run by the notorious Korean Mafia boss, Jun Seo. She had one simple rule: never be seen, never be heard. But tonight, the truth of her father's crippling debt, the real reason she worked here, had shattered her composure. She retreated to a shadowed alcove in the main hall, her shoulders shaking against the expensive tapestry, trying to muffle the despair that felt louder than any gunshot. Meanwhile, outside, the engine of a sleek black sedan sliced the night. Jun Seo, sharp as obsidian and wearing the unmistakable scent of violence and expensive cologne, stepped out. He carried the weight of the city's darkness, his gray eyes devoid of warmth. He expected order. He expected silence. He expected the perfect execution of his commands. What he didn't expect was a woman weeping in the corner of his kingdom. We all carry secrets that could ruin us. Tell us in the comments, what's the one truth that would shatter your world? Hit that like button if you want to see how Jun Seo handles this bombshell, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. Jun Seo paused in the foyer, the cold fury from his recent meeting instantly replaced by baffled intensity. The figure huddled beneath the tapestry was his maid, Bella, the anomaly of silence and grace he found himself watching more than he should. He approached with the deadly stillness of a tiger, his expensive leather shoes making no sound on the polished stone. Bella froze, the silk of her dress damp with tears, finally meeting his gaze. Her dark eyes, usually averted, were wide with a deep, consuming pain that shocked him more than a rival's betrayal. He didn't yell about the breach of his meticulous order. He didn't grab the gun holstered at his hip. Instead, his voice dropped to a sound she had never heard, a low, dangerous rumble that commanded the truth. "Why are you crying, Bella? What did you see?" His assumption was immediate. She had witnessed something she shouldn't have, jeopardizing his empire. But Bella only shook her head, unable to speak, the subtext of her fear screaming louder than any scream. This was not about his life, it was about hers. That single, unprotected moment of pure, shattered humanity was the pivotal event, making the boss realize the chaos wasn't outside his walls. It was hiding within his heart. The next morning, an icy silence filled the penthouse, thicker than the glass separating them from the city. Bella, terrified of the crack she'd allowed in her composure, threw herself into her duties, cleaning Jun Seo's office with ferocious precision. She resisted the memory of his near gentleness, clinging instead to the fear that he would use her vulnerability against her. If she had simply confessed the truth, that her father owed a rival syndicate, not the boss himself, Jun Seo might see her as a liability, not a target. Her hands trembled, polishing the blood-red mahogany. Jun Seo, meanwhile, was in his gym, hitting a sandbag with the violence he usually reserved for enemies. He resisted the unsettling curiosity Bella had ignited. Why was his maid, the picture of quiet efficiency, crying over a personal issue? It was illogical. He was the most powerful man in Chicago. Her problems should be trivial. Yet the image of her tear-stained face haunted his focus, a weakness he couldn't afford. He told his lieutenant, "Increase her security perimeter, double it, and find out why she's breathing so heavily." He couldn't walk away now, not when her hidden pain felt like a direct challenge to his absolute control. The pressure cooker situation finally shattered when a routine delivery went wrong. A rival faction tipped off about a sensitive document transfer at the estate's loading dock initiated a chaotic, loud assault. Bella, trapped in the kitchen, instinctively ran not to hide, but to warn Jun Seo in his study. The deafening sound of shattering glass and rapid gunfire forced him to shove her violently behind his antique desk, physically binding them in the cramped, dusty space. "Stay down, Jagi," he snarled, the Korean term for darling slipping out in the high-stress moment. He immediately regretted the lapse in control, but the fear, hot and sharp, was focused entirely on her safety. Bella felt the solid wall of his body pressed against her, the expensive suit jacket rough against her cheek, smelling of smoke and adrenaline. The distance they had maintained for months collapsed instantly. As he barked orders into a secure comm, she whispered the true, terrifying secret that had forced her into his employment. "They took my brother." "Not the debt, Jun Seo. They took my brother as collateral." The shock on his face, illuminated by the harsh flash of a silenced weapon outside the window, made the danger feel less terrifying than the vulnerability of her confession. The immediate danger subsided, leaving the study smelling of cordite and rain. Jun Seo ignored the cleanup crew and the urgent calls from his lieutenants, his focus fixed solely on Bella. He knew the name of the syndicate that had taken her brother. They were ruthless, calculating. His own history, buried beneath layers of power and vengeance, resurfaced with brutal clarity. He remembered his younger sister taken briefly years ago as leverage, a trauma that had carved the coldness into his soul. "I know that look," he said, his voice quiet, devoid of the usual command. The look of someone powerless while a loved one is used as currency. He lifted a framed photograph from his desk, a portrait of a beautiful, smiling woman who shared his stern eyes. "My sister. This is why I am who I am." Bella reached out and touched the glass. In that moment, the maid and the monster were simply two siblings, haunted by the same shadow of abandonment and violence. Jun Seo then noticed a small, worn silver locket hanging around Bella's neck, an identical match to one his sister cherished. "Where did you get that?" he demanded, his voice trembling for the first time. The shared symbol wasn't coincidence. It hinted at a darker, unexpected entanglement between their families, tying her personal tragedy directly to the bloody origins of his empire. The discovery of the matching lockets, a hidden thread linking Bella's humble past to the brutal history of his syndicate, forced an uncomfortable but vital truce. Jun Seo set aside his pride, needing her insight into the shared secret. They spent the next tense hours poring over old ledgers and hazy photographs in his private vault. There was a moment of true peace when Bella, exhausted from stress, gently corrected his stiff Korean pronunciation of a forgotten family name. Jun Seo, rigid and formal, suddenly felt a warmth he hadn't experienced since childhood. He offered her a crystal glass of water, his large hand pausing near her cheek before retreating.
"You fight, Jun Seo. You don't hide."
"You shouldn't be here," he murmured, his gaze softening as he watched her. In this darkness. Bella looked up, a faint, genuine smile touching her lips for the first time. "I know, but I feel safer here than anywhere else. Because you fight, Jun Seo. You don't hide." The shared vulnerability, the acknowledgement of his brutal strength as a source of safety, created an undeniable connection. They were two broken halves recognizing a desperate need in the other, a need for unconditional protection and unjudging warmth. The brief peace was violently shattered the moment Jun Seo's lieutenant, upon securing the final location of Bella's captured brother, received an anonymous tip. The message claimed Bella was a plant, that her crying in the corner was a calculated performance designed to expose Jun Seo's vulnerability to his enemies. The intelligence suggested her family's debt was to the boss's long-standing rival, and that her brother's capture was a staged event.
Look closely at this name.
The lieutenant, bound by loyalty and terror of his boss's downfall, brought the report directly to Jun Seo.
This report confirmed
The Mafia boss's face turned to stone as he read the fabricated details, the tenderness of the past hours combusting into cold, unforgiving rage. He confronted Bella in the tense main hall. "Look at me, Bella. Is it a lie? Was the crying an act?" he demanded, his voice dangerously soft. Bella, exhausted and overwhelmed, could only stammer a denial. Junseo saw not the woman who offered him warmth, but a calculated threat. "You used my weakness, my past against me." He spat, his harshest words ever said. He ordered her confined to the basement vault, the bond seemingly destroyed under the crushing weight of betrayal and misunderstanding. Junseo paced his penthouse, the silence now feeling less like order and more like a tomb. He held the report claiming Bella's treachery, but his body ached with a different truth. The warmth and connection they shared in the vault felt too real to be fabricated. His pride screamed betrayal, yet his heart hammered with the chilling possibility that he had condemned the one person who saw past his monster facade. He remembered her touch on his sister's photo, the genuine fear in her eyes when she confessed her brother was taken. He knew how easily rivals manufactured truth. Meanwhile, in the cold, windowless vault, Bella was alone with her despair. She could have easily exposed the true extent of Junseo's vulnerability to his rival to save herself, but she chose to remain silent, protecting his secrets even in her captivity. She realized that loving him, this terrifying, obsessive man, meant accepting the risk of his paranoia. She had to choose: remain protected by her silence and potentially die, or offer a final, ultimate vulnerability. She reached out and touched the silver locket, the emotional echo of her love for her brother and her desperate longing for Junseo's trust. Just as the crushing silence threatened to consume her, she whispered a single name, the childhood nickname only her brother and Junseo's sister shared. The silence of the vault was violently broken, not by violence, but by the heavy thud of the door swinging open. Junseo stood there, his face wrecked with the truth. The fabricated report was just that, a lie designed to make him destroy his own peace. He had spent the last hour cross-referencing her tearful confession with his own past, confirming the shared, painful nickname. He strode to Bella, dropping to his knees. "The locket," he rasped, his eyes searching hers. "That family name you corrected. It all comes back to a time before the war, before the bloodshed. They weren't your father's enemies, Bella. They were mine. You were leveraged to reach me from the beginning. You were never the spy. You are the truth." The raw romantic tension returned, amplified by the near tragedy. He lifted her chin, the tears on his own face, mirroring those she shed in the corner. "You were crying because I failed to protect you, not because you lied to me. I won't fail again." He ordered the full force of his syndicate to retrieve her brother, making it clear he was going to burn the city down to protect his future. Bella, seeing the raw, redeemed love in his eyes, didn't run from the monster. She ran to the protector. She reached out, pulling his bruised face to hers, sealing their deadly, devoted connection with a fierce, possessive kiss. She hadn't just been saved, she had saved him from the coldness he'd built around his heart. They were two broken pieces, now belonging to each other, bound by shared trauma and unexpected, terrifying love. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. If you had to choose, would you choose the safety of a normal life or the dangerous, passionate love offered by a protector like Junseo? Let us know in the comments below.